Live, I think.
Okay. Now is
Oh, it's still connected. We're live now. Maybe not.
Oh, 97 was up. Oh, okay. I'm talking.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully the sound is better. Hook up to the microphone.
Okay. Are you sure the microphone is on?
It is on, and according to that,
It's flashing though.
oh, it is? Okay, now it should be good. So let's make sure.
It didn't sound like it was on.
Yep.
Yeah, now it's
Okay. According to that, there we go. Turn it to.
Is it doing that?
Hey, Cheryl. Good to see you. Hope you guys are doing good. Let me know. The sound should be better tonight because we actually have the microphone hooked up. We're using a different system. And we are also on YouTube tonight, so you can watch us on there, whichever works best. So if you're online, say hello so we know you're there. Hey, Cheryl.
Awesome. How is everybody liking all the smoke?
Yeah.
Not a lot of
Kind of
fun.
weird. Kind of like the rapture was going to happen today or something. Pretty funky.
Oh, I'm like, or I don't even really know what the apocalypse is, but that was enough.
Yep.
All of those things, weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very weird. It was eerie.
It was really eerie. Yep.
My wife was
Hi, Clover.
My dog.
We miss you. Yeah.
Maybe they affect them so much.
When
I think the smell.
could be.
Maybe. Oh, yeah.
They're super in tune to smell, so when
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that blows in and it's constant, it just makes them. Plus, anything that feels or looks weird to you is gonna feel and look weird to them too.
That's true. Yeah, so
I could hear the cows in Lolita Bottoms this morning. They were mooing.
Yeah. I know. Well, I think they even took the fire truck out in the middle of the night last night because I heard the alarm go off.
It's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like,
Shalom.
Yeah.
yes.
Shalom over it.
Absolutely.
I know. I'm always thankful that we're not in the like Humboldt County probably will never burn.
Yeah, we're.
Too wet.
Yeah. We're thankful for the fog.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know what's going on with the closed captioning, but it looks like it's going crazy. That might have been earlier when we got stuck. So. All right. So let's get started. Everybody have notes? Okay. So we're on chapter 4, and it's about building healthy relationships. And the notes, if you need them, are on the Lifehouse Humboldt page in the group section. So I didn't put them on the main page, but if you go and find the group section, you'll find the notes right at the top. So, did everybody read chapter 4? Okay. Did you read about Danny and Sherry's struggles?
We're learning a lot about it.
Yeah. They're kind of open books, right? I mean, kind of. Yeah.
Very much.
Definition.
Mhm.
How many copies?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So what we'll do is we'll just go through the bullet points, and then I figure we'll just springboard off of that. So the very beginning, we read about Danny and Sherry getting marriage counseling through Bill, which I actually related to because they had 2 sessions with Bill, and I think we had 1. And so Bill doesn't do 6-week marriage counseling. It looks like he does little.
Maybe you only needed the one you might have needed.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. So we're the people online are like, I'm confused. What's going on? What is happening? Okay. So they had 2 sessions with Bill, and then they took a test, if you remember from the book, and Bill did not give them, yes, which I kind of chuckled at because I thought that is a very Bill-like thing to do. They didn't think it was funny at the time, but they laugh about it now. When Danny and Sherry took the personality test, and then Bill forgot to tell them that they were incompatible. So, right, because they
had no point of compatibility.
He said, I like the point when he's like, they had parallel lines. So they should never, according to the test, should never have gotten married. But he points out that they made the test wrong because they defied the odds, exactly. So a couple of the things that they chose to do that helped them stay together was they chose to stay invested in their connection and keep trying. So they didn't give up on each other even when there were fights and disagreements. They chose to keep moving forward together, even though I think he describes in there it was pretty tense at times, and they had their moments. They chose to embrace the unique things that made them different and learn what unconditional love and acceptance could produce when 2 people refuse to give up on each other. So I think those 2 things are pretty much the same, but
I think so too.
But nonetheless, he highlights those 2 things. So he says those are the things that help them be successful. So the foundation of unconditional love and acceptance, the foundation of a healthy relationship is an agreement to practice unconditional acceptance and unconditional love. Pretty straightforward. I don't think I have to add anything to that. Unconditional acceptance says you are not me and I am not you. You get to be you and I get to be me in this relationship. So anything you want to add on that?
I think so. We actually had a discussion this week with Willie, you and me.
Yep.
And we were talking about just perspective, and Willie and I have we see things a little bit more similarly than Marty and Willie, or Marty and I, just because I think we're wired a little bit more the same. So
yep.
He had something that he wanted us to work through, and for Willie and I, it was like, and we both were like, we're totally down to work through this. They made fun of me. We did not make fun of him. No, because it's like,
they shamed me.
No.
Poor Marty.
That's right. Thanks, Bert. Bert got it. Bert picked it up. All right.
Yeah, so, very nice.
Anyway, keep going.
But basically what I ended up sharing with him is like, I'm not you. So the perspective, so what you're concerned about is great. I just don't see it that way. Like, I need you to explain it to me so that I can see it, because I don't see it. My world doesn't, if I walk into a room and I'm in charge of something, I don't have a second question about it. Like, I see the world that way. So, but he doesn't see the world that way. So it's like realizing when you come into any type of contact with somebody else, like, they don't see how you see. They don't see that, and I think sometimes we think it's automatic. I actually read a post today that I posted like several years ago about how many conversations do we have inside our head that we don't have with people or before we get there, and then realize that it's really just a difference in perspective. Like, because you think one way, you think that they're thinking like you do, and that you think, that they didn't say hi because of one thing, or they didn't do, any of those things for other things. And it's like, well, they actually didn't think about it at all. Like, I'm not you, you're not me. Right. So I think that those are the things, and just learning how to celebrate each other for what you are. It's is honestly one of the hardest parts about a relationship, I think.
Mhm.
But I mean,
Yep.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, and because I'm, if you've ever taken a DISC assessment, I'm a high I, and so I'm kind of more go with the flow. And I tend to surround myself with what they call high Ds, which are the dominant type personality. And so if I'm not careful, I can feel controlled. And so I kind of have my own way of dealing with what feels like control. So I have to make sure that, I think we talked about this last week, but I have to make sure I'm having conversations. Otherwise, I'll make assumptions and I'll think this is what you're doing. And so I'll react to that. And so, so it's important that we know our tendency and our personality so that
Yeah.
that we can
Well,
accept other people.
I think even more going into it that they are not you. Like they
Yeah.
they do the other person does not think the way you do. Like they just don't.
Yep.
And I don't know, do you guys ever experience that? Do you guys ever experience that in your own life?
All the time.
Yeah.
Is
your son still living with you?
He's not with me. He's in Humboldt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. He's in the recovery center now.
Oh,
okay.
good.
That's really
yeah,
good.
It's pretty fantastic. Probably a miracle.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. So we were waiting for his Medi-Cal to come through, and one of my coworkers told me how to expedite it, and it was expedited that day. Thank God, because the first thing they did was they sent him to the emergency room.
Okay.
Because as it turns out, he's got diabetes.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, so it's pretty fantastic.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So, and since I work there,
No, wow, that's
awesome.
awesome.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's like the best of both worlds.
Great.
so he's not with me, but he's here in Humboldt. But I actually wasn't talking about him. I was talking about pretty much everybody else I know.
That's awesome. Yeah. Pretty much everybody else is different from me. Yeah. Well, then, Laura, you're doing remarkably well.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's
Very
right.
much.
Actually,
so.
I have seen this woman grow very much in the last 2 years. And I'm
Yep.
excited for this year because she's stepping into a leadership role, and we're excited for that. Yep. So,
already.
I know, it's amazing.
Yep.
This does not mean you have to unconditionally accept one another's behaviors, because sometimes other people's behaviors drive us crazy. But it means that we're not going to try to control the other person. So, which is really easy to say and very hard to do. So there you go. Unconditional love says, no matter what you do, I'm going to pursue the goal of connection with you. Again, that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? When you read it on the piece of paper, and then when you don't feel like it, it makes it a little harder. So, yeah. Well, and today, like, this is kind of more related to Unpunishable, but I think these two books kind of cross over. But I was in a discussion with one of our staff members because we're really going after the Unpunishable thing. And the question that they asked, I relate to, because you feel like, at what point am I enabling you? And so it's learning that line of like, I'm always for you, even though I may not agree with what you're choosing. And your choice might make me have to make another choice. You know, like, I'm not controlling what you're going to choose, but it does affect, you know, what I do. And so that's the powerful part. Whereas what we like to do is, I'm going to control you till you do what I want you to do, and that doesn't tend to work out very well. So it's really, I think what's hard is really being in touch with, you know, me making strong, powerful choices in the midst of, sometimes it feels like, oh, I really don't like that. I don't like that choice that you're making. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can interpret what the heck I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think honestly for me, I'm one of the points that I believe you put in there, and one of the pillars is self-control. And I think that I'm just learning, like, I'm in control of my emotions, I'm in control of my actions, I'm in control of, you know, and when I'm out of control, I'm working out of fear. And so I just, you know, it's like I I am still responsible for what my hopefully my response is.
Yeah.
And I know too that, you know, emotions and feelings play into things, and, you know, when I can get past that, you know, sometimes it's why you don't do something in a moment, because it's, you know, full of emotion, but it's not full of a lot of self-control or anything else, you know. And so, you know, when I can move past something, then I can realize that, oh yeah, I actually do value that relationship, you know. And if I'm at that point where I'm not valuing the relationship, then I just know, like, I got too much emotion attached to this right now. So I just find, for me, like, self-control has been a huge, you know, a huge issue for me, and a huge, to me, it brings a bunch of calm, like, because then my emotions aren't, quote unquote, being controlled by you. Like, they're being controlled by me, because I'm in charge of me. So, you know, if I'm mad or frustrated or whatever, I can blame it all on you. But if I blame it all on you, then I give you all the power of, you know, how my day's going to go and how my attitude's going to be. And I don't want to live like that anymore. Yeah. And so to me, it's like, well, you know, I'm not going to take the blame for what you're choosing to do. And I'm not going to have a bad day because you're choosing to do that. I'm going to have the day I choose to have. And, you know, and if I'm making poor choices and I have a bad day, then that's my bad, you know. But if I blame or whatever, then I start to give my power to somebody else, and I just don't want to live like that anymore, you know.
So maybe the enablement part is if we're reinforcing the negative behavior instead of being powerful, like instead of saying, well, you chose to do that, but I'm not. I'm going to choose to have. I
think it's a codependent relationship. Like, enabling behavior is like, you know,
you keep stealing from me. So, but I'm like, oh, that's fine.
It's the person who, you know, it's remember when we watched that 500-pound guy or whatever?
Oh, the 600-pound life. Yeah.
Yeah, and we would.
And they would always have somebody who would bring them the food.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. And it was like, you would think, because you think, like, how do they get up to get food?
Yeah, which they couldn't.
There's always an enabler there.
Yeah, and you know, the lady would be like, oh, this is horrible, da da da, you know, and then they'd go to Taco Bell and buy them $45 worth of food, and I'm like, you don't have to do that. Right. Like, nobody. Well, you know, if he yells, then it's like, no.
Right.
You know, like, you.
Forced fasting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying make the guy fast, but I'm saying you don't have to, you know, I mean, he can kick and scream all he wants to. He obviously can't do anything.
Right.
But I mean, we used to watch that. We went through a stint where we were watching that show like almost every night. I'm like, half depressing, half like, what the heck?
Yeah.
You know, or hoarders or any, like, you know, to me, any situation that's like, I think enabling is hard because in some areas, you're going to have to go a little further and have more compassion than, like, it would be really easy to just say, oh, you didn't do it, you know, bam, 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 bam. But then there's other times where it's like, okay, well, is somebody trying, you know, like, so in their mess?
It really would be if you're covering for them or if you're.
Or they're really not trying.
You're doing it for them instead of them doing it. So that's more the enablement part where.
I think so.
You know, they can choose to do whatever they're going to do. I can choose to not be, you know, it's like Danny says, you can be over there, I'll be over here, you know, so.
With enabling too, you step back and let's say, if I'm always enabling somebody, I step back and say, I help them to get to that point.
Yeah.
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 You know, so I need to kind of look inside myself.
Yeah.
If I'm going to contribute to that back.
Yeah.
That's
the hoarders
or whatever. That's good.
Well, and that's a great point, honestly. Like, if I help them, did I help them get to that point?
Yeah.
You know, and if I am, you know, but the flip side is like, you know, some students that we were talking about today, it's like, that's a big old mess they made, like huge mess. And, you know, and they're now just starting to kind of go, maybe I want to figure this out. Well, they're not going to be able to bail themselves out of that mess without extra grace. Like, it just it's impossible, you know, it's just not going to happen. So it's like, well, at what point, you know?
Well, and this is where I get to brag on Adrian, because Adrian's amazing at working with a student. They may have nothing, you know, this year, I think when we hit the pandemic, we were like we were owed like 30,000 in tuition, and we thought, this is going to be bad. We're not going to see any of that. And she was able to collect all of it except for like maybe 5,000. And that, but she has this way of working with them to where they feel empowered. She gives them goals, and it's really neat. And I'm excited for her too, because she's actually teaching this year in the school with Lisa, so that'll be really fun.
Well, and I think part of it too.
But she does really well at what we're talking about.
Setting goals that they can set.
Yeah,
I think part of that discussion today was just that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if I set the goal at X amount, and in 1 week, there's no way they're going to hit it. No possible way.
Mm-hmm.
But if we set it, if you set it where it's slightly out of reach, but you got to work for it.
Yeah.
Then to me, that's buy-in, and that's try, and that's,
I don't know how she does it, but she's got a gift.
I don't know
either.
She
inspires them to,
she's
step
amazing.
up to the plate. It's amazing. Yep. So in committing, we're about halfway down the first page. In committing to unconditional love, we commit to keep moving forward with each other even though we're scared, which that's self-explanatory, but that is very real. A lot of times I think even that fear of enabling somebody is fear, because you're like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing.
I think it comes down to, am I going to keep living like that? Like, when you enable somebody, or when you're afraid that you're enabling somebody, it's going to be like, is their behavior ever going to stop?
Yeah.
I think that's what's scarier than, it's like, are they going to learn this lesson, or are they not?
Yeah.
And if they don't, what does that look like for me?
Yeah, for a variety of reasons. Like, my personality doesn't like being controlled or taken advantage of, so I'm watching for that, And so the fear is, then I get suspicious, and I call it discernment, and it's not discernment, So, and that's really where having the conversation sheds light on, oh, that's really what you're thinking. I can handle that, but, or you have the conversation and you see the negative motive or whatever. Okay, well, that's not working, and so let's talk through that.
Well, for me, I've just gotten a lot of clarity on what it means, what healthy relationship is, what healthy communication is.
Yeah.
And before, I had an experience last week. I'm driving around with my son, doing his medical stuff, and I chose to go in a particular way related to the appointments, and he wanted to go a different way. And when I refused, he told me I was controlling him. I said, I'm driving a car.
Yeah.
And this path is stuff for me. It's challenging for me to drive in Eureka.
Right.
And even if it wasn't, I'm still going to drive the car.
Right.
And I told her to bus.
That's awesome.
I have a bike he can borrow.
Yeah.
And so I just invited him. But before, that would have been extremely stressful.
Right.
I wouldn't have known if that was true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's been really helpful.
See, look how much you've grown.
Yeah.
There's a bus. I have a bike for you. You have 2 legs.
There's different transportation options. That's powerful.
But isn't it nice to be able to sit in a car and not lose it?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that conversation a year ago or 2 years ago would have been an absolute disaster. And you would have been upset.
It's okay if he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Totally.
Totally. Yeah. If he's not happy with it, again, he can
Yep.
bike, bus, or walk.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I've even noticed, I'll give a shout out to my wife here when we drive together. It's very rare. The other day, you said something when we were driving. I'm like, wow, that hasn't happened in a long time. So.
No, I pretty much resigned myself to when you drive, you're going to drive how you drive.
So, hey, there's growth. That's powerful.
I see a lot of married couples who are in the car together. It's the wife that's driving. Is that right?
There could be some truth to that.
Yes.
I know we have friends who they've chosen many times to just drive separate cars because he's really passionate about being early, and she's not passionate about that. So to save their marital relationship, they just take separate cars. The gas money's worth it, is what they say. So.
My mom refuses to allow my dad to drive her horses. She will not let him pull the horse trailer. She does not like the way he drives.
Okay.
And she will,
Pulling the horse trailer.
Yeah, she will not let him pull that horse trailer.
I have never pulled the horse trailer.
No, you're not allowed either. No.
I don't even want to.
No.
That's it.
Well, and for us, whoever's car it is usually is the driver.
That's true,
So
yeah.
in his car, he's the driver, but in my truck, I'm the driver.
Unless I'm taking the trash to the dump, and then I get to drive the truck.
No, but I'm saying if we're both together,
Right, yeah.
I always drive my
Yeah,
truck.
that's
He always
true.
drives.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
the
I'm
one
wearing-
time I drove your car and hit the deer, I never heard the end of it.
That's
even
true,
though
yes, I remember that. I remember that.
he was in the car with me. It was 3 a.m.
I don't know that I remembered a lot of Keep My Love On.
No,
at
there was
that
not a
moment.
lot
It
of
was-
keeping anything on.
It was like 3 in the morning coming back from the Bay Area, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
This is why we don't
that's a bad
drive each other.
example, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, the other part of that story is that I had been hit from behind on Harris, and so I already was getting the car fixed for something else, and then so it was like I thought they're going to total my car because I have these 2 accidents. They didn't. So
Yeah. He and Micah, how did you not see the deer?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's 3 a.m. I'm driving
Yeah.
70. The deer jumped out.
yeah. Anyway, it's all worked out. The car's out in the parking lot. We're good.
You jumped on her for hitting a deer.
Yes.
Oh.
Wait, I got
At
hit from
3
behind. It wasn't my
At
fault.
3 a.m. after we had just gone to a football game and was driving home from like San Jose.
I'm over it. It all worked out. It was wonderful. I got almost a brand new car. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yay! Let's give a shout out. We're sponsored by State Farm. So State Farm is the one that fixed it. So, and I'm wearing khakis, so I could be Jake from State Farm, but not the red shirt.
We're actually matching today. This is
I know,
weird.
that is funky. Anyway, if we don't keep reading these notes, we'll never get done. So here we go. Let's jump down. Disconnection only produces more fear and anxiety. We will widen our distance. We will widen our distance at an alarming rate. So when we disconnect, we produce fear and anxiety in other people oftentimes, and it just sort of widens the gap,
Every time.
unfortunately. So yeah, that's true. Yep. Although it is sometimes good if you need to take a moment, so you don't want to react.
Yeah,
to
but I
take a
don't.
minute to, but that's not disconnecting.
No, I don't
Yeah,
see that as
yeah.
disconnecting because
Yeah.
I see that as,
Yeah.
especially if I
Using
say,
it.
hey,
Yeah.
give me
Give me a minute.
a minute. Like,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, that's wisdom because otherwise you're going to get another part of me that's not so good.
Which leads us into the next point. Managing myself to protect our connection is the ultimate expression of freedom. That is what it means to be a powerful person. So sometimes managing yourself is that. You're, okay, I can't handle this right now.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a minute. I'm not going to disconnect from you. We're going to come back together. We'll talk about it. And actually, I have a positive testimony of that because in one of my relationships, the person had heard some things that they were really disturbed about. And they even told me, like, if we had talked in the moment, it wouldn't have been good. But because we waited a few weeks, they were able to see the situation differently. And it ended up being a really positive conversation. So that was, in one way, part of managing themselves. And
I think
you
that
know.
sometimes, honestly, people get afraid, like, if I don't confront in the moment, I want it all.
Yeah.
Or they don't know how to have a conversation without having anger behind it.
Yeah.
So it's like, because the anger is the motivator, it's like, and so if I get it done right now, then,
Yeah.
But honestly, it's like, you do so much better if you don't have the emotion in it, you work through it, but you promise yourself, to me, promising yourself to go back and have that conversation is
Yeah.
the thing to do.
Yep. Very good.
Self-control involved in keeping from stewing with it
Yeah.
long enough to where you've let it go to
Yeah.
let it simmer for a while.
Yeah.
That's
A
it.
lot of people can't let it do that. That's when
Yeah.
self-control comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these pillars are kind of
Yep.
working together, kind of.
Yeah. One thing I've learned from Willie is the whole idea of don't take things personally. And he does really well at this. And when he, obviously he has moments, but he has this way of like being able to disconnect from it and know, oh, that's the situation, that's what's going on. And I've watched him do it a lot of meetings, and I'm like, I don't know how you did that because I would have reacted. And sometimes he would tell you he reacts, but a lot of times I've seen him really grow in that area, and it's taught me okay, this isn't personal. Sometimes this isn't about me. This is about something that's going on in their day or, you know, whatever. They're under pressure, they're under stress, and so they're reacting out of that. So if I can separate that for a minute, he's really good with that, especially when people are in grief, because he's experienced it. And so, so I've learned a lot just from watching him handle those situations.
So what is it about, like him or us, that gives them, I guess, they think the right to take it out on us? To, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is it?
I think if we go back to the basics, whatever the other person is,
Whoever,
So, if they're reacting negatively, it's coming from a place of fear. And so what I've learned is, like, when people try to control, it's because they're afraid. And so helping them understand, okay, what's the fear? And then you don't feel that sense of I have to control the situation because I know I'm going to be accepted and loved. Right.
Or him, not
Yeah.
you, you know?
Where you become the emotional punching bag type of thing.
The what?
The emotional punching bag, you know, where they just kind of dump on you. Do you want to take that on?
Yeah, I think it's allowing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I think I allow, like, what happens to me is a lot of what I allow. So if somebody continuously verbally does whatever they want to do, and I don't tell them I'm not into this, I'm not going to go there. I think people naturally look for people, you know, people don't want to have self-control. You know, like their goal isn't, you know, a lot of people's goal is not self-control. It's not healthy relationships. It's not, you know, getting closer. It's not, and a lot of people like to, you know, blame's the name of the, you know, so it's like, I would rather blame my boss for my situation than take any ownership myself.
Right.
I would, you know, so, because now nothing that's going wrong in my life is my fault.
Yeah.
So, but I think if I don't put a boundary on it and say, I'm just not interested in going there, or I'm sorry, if you want to talk to me like this, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. Like when you're ready to talk, and you know, and you're not, and it's not hurting me. Yeah. I'm totally, you know, I can totally be in for that conversation.
I do think the other side of it is, like, I'm kind of a more pastoral person, so people do tell me things, and that might be just something that you carry that people feel like they want to unload. But if we're not careful with our personality, is we'll take it on, and that's what we can't do. We have to okay, that's not mine. She had a situation with someone where, you know, the person made a mistake, and then they were jumping on her, and it's like, well, wait a second, I didn't make this mistake. Like, so, you know, in the moment, it's like, but she did really good at, like, I love you, but I'm not going down that road with you. Like, I'm here. And I think that's the next point about, you know, if we don't remove the option of distance and disconnection, or if we remove that option, then we'll create a safe place for people to interact with us. So they may have a temper tantrum, but you're not going to participate in that with them. You're just going to say, okay, you want to vent, go for it. You can say,
you can vent to,
you can vent whatever.
You can go vent to the door if you want to, or go find someone else who doesn't mind being thrown up on, I guess.
Totally. Yeah.
You know, it's just not me.
Right.
Like, so, and I think Marty's right. You know, the more pastoral style you are, you know, you guys are both very similar like that. You know, you're a very comfortable place to be. And so people have a tendency to just, I'm just going to feel comfortable and I'm going to just say whatever I want, because part of it is a lot of times you guys don't say, you know, confrontation isn't your favorite. So you'd rather be somebody's punching bag than say, I don't want to hear that, you know? And so I think some of it is just going, okay, I no longer want to be someone's personal punching bag. So the next time that they do that, this is what I'm going to do. And I mean, honestly, that's a lot of how I have to set up, you know, going, okay, you know, first time I go into it, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know I needed a plan.
Yeah.
You know, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, whatever, I'm realizing I need a plan.
Right.
So as soon as this happens, I gotta, you know, and that's part of what my mental gymnastics is going into something. It's like, okay, if this happens, because it's happened before, what am I going to do and keep my, you know, and so that's where I would, you know, whatever, I'd pick one relationship who dumps on you, and I would go, okay, the next time this happens, because I know it's going to, you know, and I don't have to do the mental gymnastics of whatever. I'm just, what am I going to say that gets me out of this scenario? And then you have to remind yourself that it's okay, because that's the other part, you know.
I'm with you on that one. And you remember when I was telling you, I surround myself with people who have kind of dominant personality. Well, it's easy for me, you know, my gift is my weakness. So I'm adaptable. But then if I don't say what I'm thinking, it's going to create resentment. If I don't say, hey, I don't like that. Or, you know, I guess the best example is for years, probably the first 11 years of our marriage, I didn't intentionally lie. I just wouldn't tell her everything. And because I didn't want the reaction, or I didn't want the questions. And the reason is, and I mean, I still have to work through this, but, you know, I had in my mind, she's questioning me. And so the walls would go up. But then once the light turned on, like, oh no, you're asking questions because you actually really want to know the answers, where I was feeling like, no, you're asking the questions because you want me to get your answer. And that's what was creating resentment. So basically what I had to do is go, she can react wrongly. And sometimes I tell her things and she reacts. And I had to go, oh, that's on you. I'm going to tell you the truth. How you react is not my responsibility, you know, and that's hard to do. But you can do it because I learned how to do it. So, and it's empowering because it's like, okay, well, I told you, you know, I don't know. It's like a funny story that I went to the dentist for the first time in literally since I was in high school. And so, and thankfully it wasn't as bad as I thought. I think I had one cavity, which that's probably a miracle. And no, I don't floss every day and don't tell my dentist that. But anyway, the reason I actually went in the first place is I had been chewing some ice, and all of a sudden I started having pain in one of my teeth, the one that has the cavity. So I called, and the lady who's the secretary, I know her pretty well, and my kids had gone there and all that, and she said, well, what happened? And I said, I was chewing some ice. Oh, you should never chew ice. I'm like, listen, I'm being honest with you. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I know, no big deal. But it's one of those, you know, that would have been one situation where I would have just not told the whole story normally. But now I'm like, okay, your reaction you can own. And it feels powerful, you know, because then you're like, oh, I don't have to dive in that with you, or I don't have to make it better. It's not my responsibility. I told you the truth. So that was a long answer, but hopefully that helps. Yeah. So let's talk about the 7 pillars of healthy relationships. The first one, surprise, is love. The pillar of love is comprised of a commitment, an action, and a result. The commitment part is this: I care about you and value you, all of you. So that just means, that doesn't mean just the areas that we agree on. I sometimes value things I don't agree with, and because I value you. So you may not do it the way I would want to do it, but that's okay, because most people don't. As Laura said, yeah, true. The action part is demonstrating care and value in many ways and in many situations as you get to know a person over time. And the result of these actions is that the person feels loved. Do you have an example of that?
I think
could be just valuing what the other person values, even though.
Or it just goes to the fact of, am I treating you? So I think my mom is brilliant at this.
That's true. Yeah.
My mom, you could probably cuss my mom up one side, down the other, and when you were done, she, you know, would probably say, if she was making you breakfast, she would probably say, did you want your eggs scrambled, or did you want, you know, like,
yep.
I mean, she's just very,
yep.
Yeah, she's very good at like this concept of keep your love on. Like my mom's love does not change no matter what your actions are.
It's true.
And she's amazing at it, has been amazing at it my whole life. And so I think that whatever you would have done when you were really feeling it
Yeah.
should be the same thing that you do when you're not.
Yeah.
And to me, that is,
yeah.
I'm keeping, I'm keeping things on. I am pursuing a relationship with you. I'm not treating you any different. I'm not punishing you with my behavior, withdrawing or with taking anything. I am keeping myself the same,
mm-hmm.
and whatever you choose to do with your behavior is your choice.
Yeah.
And so, that's my goal in life, is to be a little bit more like my mom.
When you may not even know the story, that I remember we were living in Weaverville. We were actually living with them, and I can't remember what happened. It was something that happened either in the business or at church or something, and I was just going off like I was having my opinion, and we were alone in the kitchen, and she was like, well, you could look at it this way, but you could look at it this way too, and maybe you didn't know what was going on behind. Who knows? Maybe they're having a bad day. She was just very like Jesus-like, and I was not in the mode of being Jesus-like, but that is Kathy. She just has this way of like, well, maybe we don't know the whole story, and it's just very gracious and loving, and I think that's why so many people connect with her.
Yeah.
So.
Liz says that it's always the right side.
I could see that in Liz.
Tired of hearing it sometimes.
Yeah. Amen, brother. Let's go in the mud together.
And she goes, no, you're not going to steal my joy. I'm going, I remember what you said. So anyway, that's not here, so I can,
Yeah, absolutely. Kurt, I relate.
That's a good thing, but not sometimes when you don't feel like hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, and that's what,
it's a good reminder, and sometimes it just takes us a little while to get there. Like, I'm just feeling this way. I know it's not right. I'll work through it. I'll get to the other side, but let me have my moment.
My mom has that personality. Liz
has
has
that personality,
more of that tendency. It's like, it's nice. For someone like me, I have to work to get there.
That's why you guys are a good match.
That's right.
The yin to your yang. It's all good.
Yep.
If you want to test the quality of love in a relationship, then you need to ask one another, do you feel safe? Do you feel cared for? Do you feel valued and significant? Do you feel protected? Do you feel pursued and known? If love is present, fear is leaving. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second one, you want to take this one, the pillar of honor.
Pillar of honor. All right. People see honor as something that is expected rather than something that is given. This is backwards. When honor is expected or even demanded, it becomes just another word for handing the control, power, and value over to one person in the relationship.
Funny story about this.
Okay.
I got to be careful because I could definitely uncover somebody here. It has nothing to do with who we work with now, but from the past. Let's just say I had a leader in my life who was concerned about the other leaders honoring them in terms of their pay. And so what they did is they bought a book that they had everybody on the leadership team read. And it was like, okay, this is an obvious statement that you want to raise. So that would be an example of trying to produce honor from expectation.
Yeah.
So
probably the next line is probably my favorite. It's a relationship where one person has all the power is one of dishonor, not honor.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, that's no. True honor is a practice of two powerful people putting one another before themselves.
Right.
That's my favorite one. It's just realizing that it takes two.
Yeah.
And to recognize.
But I think that's really that one person has all the power is one of dishonor.
Yeah.
A lot of times in leadership over the years, that's been, the pastor and, and then everybody else. And you have to honor the pastor. And it's like, if we're doing our job well, honor's not a problem.
No.
If we're, and we have Steve Darnell teaching, and he's been just amazing at just talking about this. Like basically as a leader, my job is to help you come into who God's called you to become. And it's not about me getting up there and preaching this powerful, awesome sermon every week. That's not the point of it. That's great and all, and it encourages people. But the goal is that you get connected to what God's called you to become.
Well, I think it's important too because because he talks about all the time, you know, oh, well, the pastor's up there and they're so important. And that always like bugs me a little bit because I'm like, I guess it feels like a lot of pressure, but the other side of it is really, you know, truly two people who are in it for a relationship. Like if I met the president of the United States, I honor him for who he is and for what he's done.
Yep.
But really true honor is that I honor him because of who he is as a person, and he reciprocates that to me because I'm of value because I'm a person.
Yeah. And
I think, you know, I think that's true honor. It's like your value isn't what you can do for me or what you've done.
Yeah.
It's that you're a human and you're worth valuing.
Yeah. And honor is the practice of calling out the best in one another.
Yes.
That's good. All right. So next pillar is the one of self-control. Here we go. Self-control is at the core of being a powerful person. Self-control means that you can tell yourself what to do and you can make yourself do it. And that is also hard in a lot of different ways that I could talk about. But I don't even need to convince you of that because you guys all know. In order for us to practice self-control, we must have a goal. We must have something we are saying yes to, which necessarily comes with things that we must say no to. I've heard Danny talk about this many times where he'll say, self-control is not about what we say no to, it's who we say yes to. And that's important because, you know, I think even in this day and age that we live in, there's all kinds of ideas and opinions and, you know, whatever floating around. And it's important that we know what God has said so that we follow that, because that solves it for us, right? Like if I know God said it, my opinion doesn't matter because I'm going to do what he said to do because he designed me and he knows how I function best. So, you know, in that situation, the yes that I have for him creates the no because I'm saying yes to him, I've eliminated the other options, if that makes sense. I always use the example of I've said yes to Jamie. There's no other option. If I keep the option open, becoming there's going to be a problem. So not a good thing. Here we go. The minute another person is, did I not read the? Yes, okay. Yep. The minute another person is choosing and managing our goals for us, we have left self-control behind, and I would add, we have become codependent. Self-control removes the option of blaming others for our choices. That is really important.
That is my favorite
thing. Go for it.
Because if I
want to say hi to, go ahead and, hi Michael, and hi Jason Brownfield.
Hi. If I can tell in a scenario when I do something correct, and that is because the person generally, like if I have self-control in a scenario, they generally will own the problem. Like it's just because if I react to them, then they'll find some way to like, well, you said this, you know. And so one of my favorite parts about having self-control is just going, you know, there actually isn't a whole, like, don't know what to do, and it gives them the opportunity to really own their problem. And if they're blaming somebody else, they won't change.
Yeah.
You know, and if I'm blaming somebody else, if I do it 95% right and I do it 5% wrong, I still have to own that 5%. Like, it doesn't matter who did, you know, your mama always taught you, you know, 2 wrongs don't make a right, you know. Well, it doesn't matter how much percentage someone else was wrong and how much percentage you were right. Like, you got to own your own stuff. Yeah. So blame doesn't work.
We can do blame or we can fix it. I would rather fix it. So let's do that. A lack of self-control creates anxiety in a relationship because you cannot trust one another to manage yourselves towards your goals. Essentially, you're really trying to make other people do what you want them to do. Yeah. And that
would be controlling others, not self-control.
Yeah, exactly. Self-control is what allows us to manage increasing levels of freedom in our life and relationships because, again, we're taking control of ourselves, which creates freedom in our life because we're not taking responsibility for others.
Well, but also, like I tell people, you know, in discipleship school, you know, everybody wants to change the world. And it's like, okay, well, I want you to change the world too. What are you going to do about your behavior?
Right.
You know, so if I want to go minister to a certain group of people, but, I go and I drink with them and I show up drunk too, at what point, I am actually no longer ministering to those people.
Yeah.
I am the equivalent of. So, my thing is all the time, like, how much self-control I can have in a scenario really determines a lot of influence that I have.
Yeah.
And if I want to, if I want to have a lot of influence and if I want to go places, then I have to be able to be in charge of me,
yeah.
no matter what scenario you put me in, no matter what, and so we just teach them, like, you may have the talent to be
yeah.
amazing, but you have to have the self-control and discipline to be amazing.
Yeah.
Because I have to know, and if you're going to go out and you're like, hey, I want to minister to the people in the bar, but then you're the one that's getting getting drunk, I would rather that you not go minister to the people in the bar because you don't have enough self-control for yourself. Like, you're ruining your own life. You don't, your levels aren't there.
Yeah.
So, every time you go to minister, you end up putting yourself in a ditch. I'd rather you just stay home.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the guys in the bar are probably better off for it, and you definitely are.
Yeah.
So I think it's more than just one thing.
Yeah. The pillar of responsibility.
Responsibility. When we break the word responsibility down, we find it literally means the ability to respond. Responsibility is the capability to face any situation and make powerful choices that are consistent with who you say you are. Again, I like, if I take responsibility for myself, I cannot blame someone else.
Yeah.
Again, that's, if I've got the 5% wrong, if I've got, like, I am always responsible for me and my choices, no matter what you do and what you say. The second I turn that over to you,
yeah.
I give you control of my life. So.
Well, and this next paragraph fits what you've been talking a lot about, which is the difference between responding and reacting. So read it, you'll see what I'm talking about.
When the pillar of responsibility is strong in a relationship, it's like having a GPS. You are both confident and relaxed because you have a plan, an inner compass that can be relied on to help you to respond with love and powerful choices in any circumstance. This plan grows out of your core commitments to control yourself, cast out fear with love, and pursue the goal of connection. This actually does. So for me, this is literally, I will go to bed at night, and if I've had a bad scenario or if I have a place of fear in a relationship with somebody, I really do lay in bed at night and try and come up with a plan. Like, what am I going to do? Because I know that staying in fear isn't going to work. Like, and I've promised, part of it is what I'm starting to say yes to in my life. So, I've told myself, like, I'm not going to work out of that place. So if I'm not going to work out of that place, then I have to come up with another plan. I have to have something else. So I literally will lay in bed and go, okay, this is the scenario I have. These are the things that scare me in this scenario. What can I control in this? What is my responsibility? What is it? How am I going to respond in this area? And what am I, when this happens, and I know it will, what am I going to choose to do? And I'm starting to really retrain my brain to just go, before I didn't realize I was working out of fear when I was reacting. I really didn't.
Yep.
I actually thought, this is just my personality. This is how it is. I'm a confrontational person. So, hey, you're going to get it how you see it. And I didn't have any problem with that. And honestly, looking back, now I see it as a problem, but I was ignorant. So what are you going to do? You don't know what you don't know. But now that I do, I realize, oh, it's not my personality. It's actually a choice I make. And so now going forward, I'm realizing, oh, well, if I'm going to make that as a choice, that's not okay. So just knowing yourself, and, I try and make pathways in my mind so that pretty soon it just becomes a natural thing.
That's why the yes is so important.
Yeah.
Because, like, I was thinking the GPS example makes sense to me because I can remember lots of times where we were in Oakland or something, and I didn't have the address that we were going to, and it's like, everybody shut up in the car, I got to focus, and you're turning the radio down for whatever reason, and you're just trying to, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but you're reacting. Whereas you know, if I have the roadmap, if I have the GPS telling me turn right or turn left up here, I just have to follow the directions. And we have that in our relationship with the Lord.
I think
That's how we can respond.
The other part of the GPS thing is that I loved when I read the book was he said, if you make a wrong turn, it recalculates for you. So it tells you where you can pick up. And so, you know, what I'm learning is over the past 9 months, I've learned that this actually works because I've seen fruit of it.
Right.
So now I'm starting to realize like my buy-in yes is a lot higher. You know, like before it was like, I'm not really sure that this is going to work or not, you know, so maybe I'm in, maybe I'm not. I'm trying this out in theory.
Yeah.
Now I know, no, I've tried it enough to know that this works. And it will continuously work. So if so-and-so does something wrong, like it's a place of peace for me because it's like, okay, even if they choose wrong, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like it's going to, you know, we're going to recalculate. We're going to find another way. If we miss the next 5 stops, okay. It may take a little longer to be there because we might have to turn around, but we're going to be okay. Like I think the scariest part is, you know, when you're on a trip and you don't know where you're going, is worried like you'll never get there and you're never going to be okay.
Or you make a wrong turn, you'll end up in the wrong place. Whatever. Yeah.
It scares you. Yeah. And so, but this, you know, this reminds me it's going to be okay.
Can somebody tell me from the book, because I feel like I wrote this one down wrong. Is the next one the pillar of truth or trust? It does say truth? Okay. Only because some of the wording he uses seems to go more towards trust. So anyway, for many people, trust means I need to be able to anticipate your decisions. I need to know what you would do, that you would do what I would do, which that doesn't happen very often, right? Like people tend to not always do what we would do. And so if that is our criteria, we're going to be frustrated. If trust hinges on my ability to anticipate your behavior, then our connection is going to be threatened, right? Because people don't make choices that we always anticipate. And if that is the criteria, we're going to be frustrated with people. This version of trust quickly turns to mistrust, which is just another word for fear, the enemy of love and connection. Incidentally, many people get disillusioned and hurt when God does not do what they think he should have done. Because they could not predict his behavior, they decide not to trust him. Does that mean God is not trustworthy? Absolutely not. That's a great example because, you know, we've prayed for something. It makes all the sense in the world to us. We're connecting all the spiritual dots that we know, and God goes left instead of right. And you're thinking, I don't know how that works. Yeah. But I think this speaks to your point earlier about our version of revival as an event or this moment in time, a meeting, whatever. And I think God's version of revival is us living out who he created us to be. Because us being able to do that on a consistent basis, I think creates that in other people. So that's good. Life is not static or contained. There will always be mystery, unexpected circumstances to face, and fresh seasons of growth. So we need a pillar in our relationship that makes room for this, and that is the pillar of truth. There we go. That makes sense. I display trust by telling you the truth. All right, Jamie, last one is yours. No, there's another one. Do you want to do faith or vision?
Whatever you'd like me to do.
Go ahead and do that.
Okay. So, pillar of faith. Mysterious as it is, making ourselves accountable to God and putting ourselves under his authority is the only way we can be powerful and learn to govern ourselves. I think that goes back to the point where I was talking about believing that something's going to work.
Yep.
The pillar of faith is built in a relationship as two people commit to keep God as their ultimate source, ultimate comforter, and ultimate authority. When two people are consistently pursuing a connection with a perfect one, that connection will set the pace for their connection with each other. Everything that we have studied through, even through Irresistible, through all of this, it's like you constantly see God not turning off his love and continuously trying to figure out a way to connect. You know, you saw that in Irresistible over, you know, how many different plans did he make before he sent Jesus just to try and see, you know, it's like, okay, well, they can't do this one, so let's do this one. Okay, they can't do that one, let's do that one. You know, and finally he just said, forget it, I'm going to go back to my plan. which was the best plan of all.
Yep.
And so, you know, but Jesus is never not trying to reconnect with you, which I think is an interesting thing, because in the church, I think we have taught people that Jesus only wants to connect with you when you're doing well.
Right.
You know, there's been a lot of, you know, we're afraid of him because, you know, because we've basically taught people that if you screw up, he doesn't know, you know.
Yeah. He doesn't know what to do with that.
No. And he's not going to pursue you.
Yeah. But that's not even, if you read the Gospels, he probably hung out with the most dysfunctional people around. So he wasn't afraid of that.
It's not scriptural, but it again is human perspective, human reading.
However we processed,
Yep.
All right, so the last one is the pillar of vision. No one can fulfill your potential. I think it's Larry Randolph says God's responsible to fulfill his promise in your life, but not your potential. That's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And the good thing, the empowering thing about that is when you know that potential and you're pursuing that potential, it actually empowers you to not put other people in that place. The more that I can honestly say that means less and less. And I actually attribute something good to this pandemic is that I've kind of come to this place of like, okay, I don't really care. I just want to obey God. And there's a lot of things that I used to care about that, you know, on the surface looked good. And now I'm like, you know what? QTL, quality time left. What am I going to do with that time, and how am I going to fulfill my potential? And so that's important. Having a vision is important. Our vision can give a purpose to your pain, which he stole from Chris Valentin, because that's a Chris Valentinism, which enables us to endure it and reach your goal. So basically, if you have a vision, it's worth going through the resistance that you're going to face in order to get to that vision. One of the marks of powerful people is that they proactively establish practices and build relationships and help to renew their vision and remind them of who they are. So, which is really good, because you'll find that when you're doing that with other people, they're not only meeting expectations, they're exceeding them, because they're actually figuring out that they are powerful and they can make positive, awesome choices. Yeah. They can be godly. They can overcome things they didn't think they could overcome in their life. And so vision's a really important thing. And in order to help other people connect to that vision, we have to know who we are. And it also gives people permission to be strong in areas that we're weak, because we're not in competition with them, because we know who we are. So that's good stuff. 2 good chapters in a row. That was really good. Both of them really spoke to me. So, yeah.
So I'm in the pillar of truth.
You are, okay.
And yeah, it's not going well.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing.
Yeah, well, it is because it is funny. Because it's absurd.
Yeah.
Because so God is telling me the truth. I know that. I probably don't.
Yeah, right.
I'm so split.
Yeah.
So I got over the part where I thought he was Magic Teeny God.
Yeah.
And I know he's not.
Right.
And so I'm just in this, and I'm just so any input or
So
time.
Yeah, well, it's choice. So the problem is that we want to know for sure 100% that this is going to work out, and it's going to work out exactly how I want it to.
Yeah.
But that's not faith.
I actually know that I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
and
good.
So, but if you know that it's truth, then you have 2 options. Mm-hmm. You either continuously decide that that's where you're going to put all your chips in on that one, or it doesn't matter what you see, because this is a faith part.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, you know you don't know, but you know this scares you.
Yeah.
But that's called faith.
Yeah.
So, you know, I put all my chips in this one, and I don't take them back.
Yeah.
And when I get afraid, I remind myself, what did truth say? Mm-hmm. And then I go back to that, and that's where I find my peace.
Yeah.
So I don't find my peace when I'm deciding whether or not I want to take some of those chips back or not.
Yeah.
That's, but if I know that I'm believing in truth and I put it all in there, as long as I keep going, I don't care what I see, I care what you said.
Right.
Then I stay in a place of peace and I'm okay. If I care what I see, that's when that's when I got a problem.
Yeah.
Because at that point I'm asking for opinions, and if I'm believing truth, I shouldn't be asking opinions. I shouldn't. So but that is a really, that lesson is how I got out of really bad spots. Is just going I have to.
And that was the same for me, but for different reasons. Because my thing was, I can only be good if she's good, and so that was my definition. And when it didn't happen, I kept getting disillusioned with God until that was. Remember, he kept telling me I just want to teach you about love, and I was like, okay, you can do that, but fix my wife, and then we'll talk about it. And he was like, this is part of the process, So, and I was even driving around today, I thought, I'm really thankful and blessed that I know God, because this situation right now would throw me for a loop, and if I didn't have him as an anchor in my life, this morning when I woke up and it's the red sky, this is nutty. So, but thankful that we're going to get through this. As my father-in-law says, if it's not good, it's not the end, and it's not good right now. So we're gonna cross over soon, some point. So, all right, we're gonna say goodbye to the online audience. Good, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week. We might even have students in the audience because we start school next week.
Well, but we're taking them rafting.
Oh, that's the day, Wednesday?
Yeah,
they're not going to be back.
They won't be in class.
Okay.
Yeah, they won't be in